Good afternoon, everyone. There's been a lot of controversy, a lot of conversation when we're talking about the BRICS, Russia, India, China, as well as South Africa, and their non-GMO approach to their financial system, and essentially how to make these other countries the new superpowers of the world, while China leading the helm, topping America, and Russia coming in second, topping the UK and all the other European countries. This is the way how these countries may, not stating that they will, become the new superpowers of the world, and not stating that America and other European countries who have been using fiat for a very long time to be now claimed and categorized as third world, even second world countries. But this is a real thing that's going on in the world today. And I think a lot of people are kind of like shunning themselves to a point where they do not believe it's feasible, because America has been in power, has been the superpower of the world for quite some time. But as we look at history, we notice history tends to repeat itself for quite some time. Even before the Europeans even came on the scene, there was many countries in Africa who had dominance because of their military, as well as their economics, meaning the amount of gold that they had in reserves, that they had in production, and the amount of gold that they had on hand. All of these things are very relevant to the conversation today. We've seen numerous of kingdoms, numerous of dynasties fail for one reason or another. And two things have always been involved are the economic prowess as well as their military prowess. So as we go through this video today, family, I want you to keep those two things in mind, because it's very, very important. It's very, very important that we keep those things in mind, because at the end of this, I actually want you to learn something about what is occurring today. So with that being said, just like anything else I do here, let's give defined and contextual information so we can follow along very easily. Fiat money can be printed without limit and thus has no real value. Gold, on the other hand, holds real stable value thanks to its scarcity. Now, I'm going to play this video a couple of times, this clip a couple of times in this video, and this is to contextualize some of the psyche and psychology around fiat currency versus gold. And I want you to stay with me here.
Look at some ways to make some money.
Shit. Talking about money, Pops. Remember, you got $20 for me.
20. I don't have the whole 20, but here's 10. I owe you 10 more.
Okay.
Before you put that in your pocket, Patrick, you know you owe me 20 from last night.
All right. I don't got the whole 20, but here's 10. I'll give you the next 10 later.
Yeah, don't let that get good to you, because you owe me 20.
I don't have the whole thing, but here's 10 for now.
There's 10 on the 20 that you owed me. Patrick, I owed you 10. There it is.
Casey, here's the 10 I owe you.
And here's the 10 I owe you. So now I'm even. We're all even.
Everybody paid in full.
Everybody paid in full.
Yeah, man. That's it.
All up to today.
That's crazy. That's crazy. And we may break that down just a little bit later, but I wanted to start it off very strong with that banking system of how America, especially Western powers, conduct business. How somebody always owes somebody, and then as they are paying each other, everyone's paid in full with the same $20 bill. Very important. Let me move on. Now, in this next video, I know some people, please take this with a grain of salt. The newscaster here is kind of quirky, kind of weird, but there is some relevant information. Now, you may not be a Fox person, but the information is relevant within itself, dealing with the current times that we're actually in. Please listen.
Bring back the gold standard. Plenty of us liberty freaks have been screaming that for years. along with taxation is theft and end the Fed. But with inflation roaring out of control and the impotent lords of fiat currency failing us in the economy, it is time this troubled nation get back to sound monetary policy. Congressman Alex Mooney has introduced a bill to adopt a new gold standard for these new times. And it's about time because our dollar has lost.
So what's important here is that there has been a bill proposed in order to pass to change the American fiat system to be backed by the gold standard. Now, currently, America has the most gold in the reserves, roughly over 8,100 tons, just to keep that in mind as well.
Lost 30% of its value since the year 2000 and 97% since the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913. That year was a real crap festival. Well, right now, the U.S. sits on the largest gold stockpile in the world, roughly 8,100 tons of the stable stalwart. So if we were on a gold standard, the value of our money would be tied to physical gold instead of some imaginary modern monetary theory, which is socialistic garbage that encourages money printing and deficit spending.
What's important about what she said, so we can break that down even better, is to go back to the definition of the current standard of America's financial system, which is fiat money. And it states here once again that it can be printed without limit, right? What is printing money without limit and thus has no real value. The only value that fiat currency has is the backing of the government stating its true value, which it has no stable resource to back it. Essentially, it's like stating the reason why Saudi Arabia and the sheiks and all those who deal within the oil industry in Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, so on and so forth, are rich, and even Russia are rich, is because they are in the business of oil, which is a tangible mineral, a tangible resource that has value, is tied to different people's currency, as well as how they trade money within their countries, okay? Keep that in mind as well.
And we're doing that now, and it's not working unless you call out of control prices and a global recession success. Fiat currency and the lying stewards like Jerome Powell, who hates the idea of a gold standard, so does Paul Krugman. If they hate it, we should like it. It is vulnerable to the kind of inflation that, when not recognized early, talking about fiat currency, and when mislabeled as transitory, it's almost impossible to rein in. Human beings are flawed. I get that. They're narcissistic. Some of them are dumb. But when you combine all three of those attributes into a Fed chair, a Treasury secretary, and president, it's very easy to see how this arbitrary fiat system could have its way with an economy and bugger it into helpless submission. I don't want a buggered economy. I don't want to be buggered. I want an economy that services hardworking individuals who can see and measure the proof of their currency's value. I demand a return to rational monetary policy in this country and dare other countries to follow suit. We have been lied to, taken advantage of, marginalized by powerful elites who think we're too dumb to measure apples to apples and gold to dollars. Let's return to the gold standard now and force the incompetent buggerers to resign in disgrace. I love gold, and that's the memo. All right,
she's so quirky.
About 16.
But I guess my question to you, family, is how important you think gold is to this economy versus around the world. Now, as we go through some of the information here today, we're going to see that all these other countries, except the one true continent that has the majority of the gold mines that has yet to be reserved, should be the most powerful and richest continent and countries in the world. But if you notice, they don't have the largest gold reserves on hand. That is by design, because a lot of their wealth, a lot of their gold is being transferred, stolen, and as well as manipulated through certain financial systems to prospective countries in the West.
$1,550 per ounce. That's off its high of 2,078. That was back in March. The Washington bigwigs are still scared to go back to the old gold standard. Why? Do they hate gold, member? Oh, that should keep it. Joining me now to discuss West Virginia Republican Congressman on the House Financial Services Committee.
This is going to be very fruitful for you guys. Please
welcome
listen
to the show, number one. Number two, you just introduced that bill to get us back on the gold standard. Tell me about it.
Well, thank you for focusing on this important issue. I'm the first congressman since Jack Kemp in 1989 to put this bill in. Ronald Reagan supported getting back to the gold standard. I actually saw a show on Fox News recently where Art Laffer was talking about how it's been 40 years now since we got off the gold standard, and everything that was predicted when Richard Nixon temporarily took us off the gold standard, all the predictions have proven the opposite. Inflation's out of control, spending's out of control, our dollar's worth less to the average American, and it was terrible policy to get off it to begin with. So I thought we need to put this bill in and start having a real discussion about how to have our dollar bills be stabilized, much like you said in your introductory remarks.
All right, and not to bore you with Fox Business, but that's important because a lot of people are ignoring what's going on currently with the BRICS. This is the only reason why gold has now been relevant to the natural public. For people in finance and for people in politics, gold has always been the beginning, the middle, and the end of the conversation when it comes to the currency, the power, and the economic system here in America. But for us common folk who deal in fiat currency every day, thinking the dollar bill is worth the money that's not even worth that the money that it's printed on. So when we look at these things and we now understanding that the BRICS has brought the topic of gold back to the top of everyone's list, there are some other things I want you guys to keep in mind as well when it comes to the U.S. and its power and its dominance over the entire world. Fair use, fair use.
It's not China per se. It's the interests of the Americans that are being threatened with a world that is more equal, that is more fair, that is more just. They can't survive in that world because their methods of existence are based on plundering other nations, on humiliating other nations, on exploiting other nations. It sets one humble nation against the other. When it doesn't have a hand in it, it doesn't work to resolve those conflicts. It works to perpetuate those conflicts. When the world is divided, it becomes easier.
Now, if you notice, it states here in the subtitle that the U.S. benefits from conflicts and wars. In my recent trip to South Africa, I spoke with a lot of gentlemen from Zimbabwe. And the one thing that was consistent in all of them telling me that the U.S. and other Western powers, and I'm not stating this is true or false, only what they've stated to me, that the U.S. and European powers has funded Rwanda as well as Uganda militias to come in and disable the Zimbabwean government and the economic system to extrapolate and to extract resources. What do you believe some of those resources are, family? Now, as I've stated before, many a times on this channel, is that Africa is the richest continent in the world with the poorest people in the world. And that is because in some form or fashion, they are being manipulated by European Western powers. And that includes America as well. Now, a lot of people like to get into conjecture about prove this and prove that statement. Do the research. It's there. It's in plain sight. This is the reason why America is now taking their toll, taking their travels to Africa because of the BRICS. You'll see many videos of people speaking out against, oh, well, China is in debt themselves. China is doing this, that, and the other. I am not even refuting that information. But you cannot go against the factual information that the BRICS do pose a viable threat to America when it comes to economics, when it comes to currency value, when it comes to the fiat system of the Western powers. How does America gain a foothold in countries? Now I want you to listen even closer.
To exploit, it becomes easier to plunder. This is the country that benefits from wars. It prospers from wars. It creates wars as a business. If no conflict arises naturally, they create it. Look at Iraq today.
If there is no conflict, they create it.
20th anniversary of
20th anniversary. What is happening to the Iraqi oil money? When Iraq sells oil, all the money goes to the USA. Is Iraq independent? Is Iraq sovereign? Iraq today is a colony of the USA. They say, do unto others as you would like them to do unto you. Does the USA do unto others as it would like them to do?
I don't want them to finish. Boy, it hurts sometimes being American because when people speak truth to power, this is this is what it really is. The only question what he was saying about the Iraqi oil and that Iraq is a colonized country of America because all of its oil comes to America. Now America is one of the most the first producing countries of petroleum oil. I have one question. When he stated that if there is no conflict or war and you need or want that resource, they're stating that the Western powers create conflict. One question for you and one question is only. Please leave it in the chat. Did America or any other foreign power find weapons of mass destruction in Iraq? That's the first question. And I'll just give you a caveat. I'm a prior U.S. military member, but I want to ask it again. Did America or any other foreign power find weapons of mass destruction in Iraq or Iraq, however you want to pronounce it? Please leave it in the chat.
On itself, look at what they did to Saddam Hussein. Look what they did to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya. Look at what they do to other people's leaders.
To this day, Haitians are still calling out America as the reason and or by proxy or by a straw man of their president, their late president being assassinated. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that. Then we have to look at what's going on in the world in totality with America, Ukraine, and Russia. Again, the kind of the nutshell of this is gold, but you have all these branches that are attached to this tree trunk. The tree trunk within itself is gold, and the branches is everything that we're mentioning here today. All these different countries, all these different accusations and allegations of other things that are occurring in the world, as well as the BRICS. But now I want you to hear this report that I've been stating this for a very, very long time, but everyone was stating how because of these misinformation stories coming out of Ukraine by the US media to inform the people that Ukraine is doing a great job with the war, and because of the equipment of the NATO forces and the Allied forces have been given to Ukraine, that they have been repelling Russian forces. But things like this start to come out and start to have those statements to be very, very invalid. Listen to this.
Has been altered. For example, a document from March 2023, classified as secret, says between 60,000 to 70,000 Ukrainian troops have been killed in action, which is higher than what the Pentagon says it estimates. The documents also estimate Russia's casualties to be around 16,000 to 17,000. But U.S. officials say they estimate around 200,000 Russian troops have been killed in action. Another document, also classified as secret, is dated February 2023. It shows the amount of Western weapon systems that Ukraine currently has on hand and the estimated delivery of additional systems. And it also lists the training Ukrainian forces have or are expected to have on those systems. The director of Grand Strategy at Quincy Institute, George Beebe, had this to say on the Hill.
One potential hypothesis here is that this was designed to get the Russians to let their guard down, to think that the Ukrainians are not going to be coming at them with big numbers and overwhelming force. And that's possible, but I think if you were really trying to throw the Russians off, you would want to include some things that would include where and when the Ukrainians might be attacking. That would be the ultimate aim of this kind of deception.
Something else that was shown in the documents is the presence of nearly 100 special operations troops in Ukraine from NATO countries, including from the United States, France, and the UK, according to the New York Post. Russia's Kremlin spokesperson, Dmitry Peskov.
So the Biden administration told the U.S. people that they will not be deploying U.S. troops to Ukraine. Only equipment some jets, some tanks, but not U.S. troops. But leaked document shows that there are actually U.S. troops on the ground assisting Ukrainian forces against Russia. What's going on here? We've been lied to constantly, family. And this is where the truth double downs on itself. And a country like America, believe me, I don't want this, start to show signs of imploding on itself. These are very different times than any other time that I could really remember in history when it comes to America. America has always been a powerhouse. America has always been building and creating and innovating, economy and GDP growing exponentially. Yeah, we had the Great Recession of 1929 as a great reset. Yeah, we had the recession of 2008, 2009. But during those times, has anything else been going on of this nature simultaneously? That's the question.
Said this in a statement to CNN. We don't have the slightest doubt about the direct and indirect involvement of the United States and NATO in the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. Well, of course, it makes the whole story more complicated, but it can't influence the final outcome of the special operation. Jason Perry, NTD News.
So a lot of propaganda, family, and we know that propaganda exists even in our media circles. But when I was thinking about the amount of troops or the type of troops that may have been deployed, allegedly have been deployed to the Ukraine, I know they're probably one type of soldier, white. You can't get away with black. I'm not stating there's no Ukrainian citizens that are black, but you can't just deploy a bunch of black U.S. soldiers over there. They're going to know that they're black U.S. soldiers, but you can definitely get away with some white ones. Tell them, hey, don't talk too much. You see some cameras, you see some microphones. Don't say anything, because they're going to be wearing the Ukrainian uniforms. Not just to fool the Russians, family, but to fool you. Because United States President POTUS stated that he would not be sending U.S. troops to Ukraine to fight alongside the Ukrainian forces. Just like anything else, rich people always throw money at the problem. And America is very, very rich onto itself, but its fiat currency has been just throwing money at the problem over and over and over again, just throwing money at it, billions and billions and billions of dollars. And that still has not stopped Russia from invading Ukraine. They say, well, let's give them some troops. Let's dress them up in Ukrainian uniforms. All of them have to be Anglo-Saxon. All of them have to be Caucasian. I'm just speculating at this point, and I hate to do that, but God damn it, I had to, okay? Let's move the conversation a little bit further here. Let's talk about gold. According to Investopedia, the gold standard is a monetary system whereas country currency or paper money has a value directly linked to gold. That's having your money on the gold standard instead of the fiat standard where it's just printed money with no value. The only value is the backing of that government. So if that government topples, guess what you have? Have you ever guys seen these post-apocalyptic movies? What's the one with Denzel Washington? Eli, where they was just burning money. If you look at, The Walking Dead, you look at all of these different shows and movies, what you'll tend to see is that the American dollar has been used as burning fires to keep warm, because once the government destabilizes on itself and the government fails, that paper money means absolutely nothing. But from the dawn of time, gold has always been valuable because it's a scarcity mineral resource that is hard to find in nature, okay? Considering everything else that we have when it comes to minerals and resources and precious metals. Again, the gold standard is a monetary system where a country's currency or paper money has a value directly linked to gold, With the gold standard, countries agree to convert paper money into a fixed amount of gold. A country that uses the gold standard sets a fixed price for gold and buys and sells gold at that price. That fixed price is used to determine the value of the currency. For example, if the U.S. sets the price of gold at $500 an ounce, the value of the dollar will be 1/500th of an ounce of gold. Then it states here, the gold standard is not currently used by any government. Then we go back to the BRICS. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa. Now trying to convert their monetary system to be backed by gold versus the fiat currency that we are in today. It says here that the appeal of gold standard is that it arrests control of the issuance of money out of the hands of imperfect human beings. Oh yeah. We're so imperfect when it comes to money because all of us want to ball till we fall. Is there an issue? Throw money at it. With the physical quantity of gold acting as a limit to the issuance, a society can follow a simple rule to avoid the evils of inflation. The goal of monetary policy is not just to prevent inflation, but also deflation, and to help promote a stable monetary environment in which full employment can be achieved. Family, these are trying times when it comes to economics. And this kind of all started back in the early 1800s because England traditionally in the modern world, so to speak, even though Africans were doing it way before England, but of course, dealing with Europeans, back in 1821, England became the first country to officially adopt a gold standard. The international gold standard emerged in 1871, following its adoption by Germany. By 1900, the majority of the developed nation were linked to the gold standard. Ironically, listen to this, the U.S. was one of the last countries to join. In fact, a strong civil lobby prevented gold from being the sole monetary standard within the U.S. throughout the 19th century. So America has always been resistant for to gold to be its standard or its backing of its U.S. dollar. And we must show this because this was very vital to the times, because this happened kind of at the end of World War II, the Bretton Woods Agreement, which was the first, which would be the framework for the global currency markets in 1971. Okay, this is a very long document. I'm just trying to paraphrase here for you, family, so I don't read you guys to death. Give me 1 second. Now that we have that out the way, we have to go back in history just a little bit. They say here that the ancient Egypts were the first to use gold, okay? The first civilization to mine and use gold were the ancient Egyptians. Artifacts recovered over the centuries led scientists and historians like to agree that Egyptians first began mining gold in 5000 BC before developing the written language. And we understand, we're not going to get into the colorism of Egyptians because we understand the first true Egyptians were about my complexion, not the color tone Egyptians that you see today. That's more of a lighter tone or a lighter brown complexion. I'll leave that for another channel to discuss that. Go look at the home team. They have some really good videos of what the first original Egyptians looked like, okay? Moving right along. It states here that this was about around 1500 BC when the ancient empire of Egypt, which benefited greatly from its gold-bearing region, Nubian. Also, gold is a mystical material, as mystical as its history. This precious metal was being mined, formed, and traded before 4500 BC. So again, we go back to Africa. Africa has the largest gold mines in the world that has yet to be mined. So even though America has the largest gold deposit, over 8,100 tons, equaling roughly over $500 billion, Africa is still the richest continent in the world with the poorest people. We're not going to get into the racial aspect of that because we already know. Now, again, why is this?
Of the imposition of sanctions by the United States on the basis that you are using their currency. In order to avoid the consequences of sanctions that arise from that, let's walk away from the dollar. When Russia trades with China, there's no reason why they must trade US dollars to exchange. None. And so that even India is saying the same thing. So globally, there's a discussion that is taking place to say we must find alternative means of trading among ourselves and not subject ourselves to the situation where there's one currency in the world, which becomes a global reserve currency. Because it gives the country that is the issuer of the money, the United States, it gives it the power to impose its will. It is better that we have a diversified financial system rather than to be so tied up with one currency. Many countries are saying.
Understand what's going on in the world today, ladies and gentlemen. And the reason why this is important is because when I look at a lot of videos dealing with these particular topics, I hear a lot of people giving their own attest to what they think versus going out and doing the research and showing you actual material from other country spokespersons like this gentleman here, other information and metrics that we're even showing from a U.S. perspective. Very important. And now showing this video again, you guys will understand what's going on.
Trying to think of some ways to make some money.
Shit. Talking about money, Pops. Remember, you got $20 for me.
20. I don't have the whole 20, but here's 10. I owe you 10 more.
Okay.
Before you put that in your pocket, Patrick, you know you owe me 20 from last night.
All right. I don't got the whole 20, but here's 10. I'll give you the next 10 later.
Yeah, don't let that get good to you because you owe me 20.
I don't have the whole thing, but here's 10 for now.
There's 10 on the 20 that you owed me. Patrick, I owed you 10. There it is.
Casey, here's the 10 I owe you.
And here's the 10 I owe you. So now I'm even. We're all even.
Everybody paid in full.
Everybody paid in full.
Yeah, man. That's it.
And that's how the banks do it, family. That's how the banks do it. It's a circle jerk when it comes to the U.S. financial system of fiat currency because it's I owe you, I owe you, I owe you, but we all paid in full. Let's see that just one more time for you guys to understand what I'm getting at here.
All up to today, just chilling?
Trying to think of some ways to make some money.
Shit. Talking about money, Pops. Remember, you got $20 for me.
20. I don't have the whole 20, but here's 10. I owe you 10 more.
Okay.
Before you put that in your pocket, Patrick, you know you owe me 20 from last night.
All right. I don't got the whole 20, but here's 10. I'll give you the next 10 later.
Yeah, don't let that get good to you because you owe me 20.
I don't have the whole thing, but here's 10 for now.
There's 10 on the 20 that you owed me. Patrick, I owed you 10. There it is.
Casey, here's the 10 I owe you.
And here's the 10 I owe you. So now I'm even. We're all even.
Everybody paid in full.
Everybody paid in full.
Yeah, man. That's it.
Hopefully you guys understand that because when we get into the top 5 countries with the largest gold mine reserves in the world, gold mine reserves is the difference between gold mine reserves, gold that you have on hand, your gold deposit, so to speak. This is gold yet to be actually mined, okay? So let's see the top countries with the largest gold mine reserves. We have Australia at 10,000 tons. Now, currently, America only has 8,100 tons of gold, but essentially the estimate that they have roughly 10,000 tons. Russia, 5,300 tons. South Africa, 3,200 tons. The U.S., we still supposedly, as an estimate, 3,000 tons of gold to be yet to be mined. In Indonesia, 2,600 tons. Moving right along. When it comes to the 50 country with the most gold in reserve, okay? In reserve, meaning that's the gold we actually have on hand. That's the gold that has been mined and refined, so on and so forth. You got the U.S., Germany, Italy, and France. Again, America slightly over 100 tons, okay? 100 tons. 8,100 tons. Then we go into the global mine production, and this is coming from the Gold Council, or the World Gold Council. And now let's look at these numbers. Gold mining is a global business with operations on every continent except Antarctica. And gold is extracted from mines of widely varying types of scale. At a country level, China was the largest producer in the world in 2021 and accounted for around 9% of total global production. Our interactive gold mining maps provide a breakdown, blah, 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 okay? And you see here that China last year mined 332 tons of gold. So I had the questions for the naysayers out there. Is BRICS a real thing, or is it just conjecture? Or is America tallying that they may no longer be the superpowers of the world? That the US dollar may lose value if we don't do partnerships with our African countries. Real partnerships, not the blood contracts that China has been doing with these African countries, or the manipulation and theft of these gold reserves and gold mines in Africa. That's the question. The question is this the real thing now? Maybe not. Maybe I'm just shooting from the hip. Maybe I'm just shooting from the hip when I state that Africa has the largest gold mines in the world with the largest amounts of gold yet to be mined and refined. Well, let's go and investigate here a little bit. Gold worth billions smuggled out of Africa each and every year. Who's doing the hard work of mining gold? Africans. They have the richest land in the world. And when we look at these numbers, family, what we're going to see, some of the top exporters of gold: Libya, Ghana, which is also known as the Gold Coast, Sudan, Mali. Don't forget about Mansa Musa. He came out of Mali. Tanzania, Egypt, Guinea, Nigeria, Togo, and Uganda. Okay, Libya being number one. Wait a minute. Who played a role in Gaddafi's assassination? And what is the top resource and export of Libya? Gold. Do you believe that 8,100 tons of gold was mined in America during all the different gold rushes? Did America play a role in Gaddafi's assassination? I'm just asking questions. I'm gonna let you guys come up with the conclusions. But as we see here, a lot of these African countries have a plethora of gold mines and gold mine reserves. And don't forget, one of the number one countries on here that we saw on the prior list was South Africa. Okay, so keep them in mind as well. But anyway, thank you all for joining me today. Please share this video. Please share, like, and subscribe to Blacklogic, as I will give you relative content to your everyday and always discussion for debates and arguments. You guys have a good one. I'll see you on the next one. I'm out.